people are starting to disappear. Look, I'm not one for conspiracy theories or anything usually, but this how COVID thing has seemed fishy from the start. I know there are things that we don't know. Either it's been around longer than we've known. Lots of people have talked about being really sick in October to December of last year without knowing why. It isn't as big of a deal as they're making it out to be, and governments are testing to see how much they can control their citizens. I don't know, but something has seemed amiss from the beginning. But like I said, I'm not one for conspiracies, so I wrote it off as just a side effect of the fact that no one alive today has gone through this kind of thing before, and I've just been trying to manage as best that I can. All in all, I'm one of the lucky ones. Myself and my boyfriend are both able to work from home, as are my parents, and we are all healthy. I live in Alaska, and our number of cases is smaller up here than most other states, so the few people I've known who have contracted the virus have been people in the lower 48, and all of the ones I've known have been lucky enough to make a full recovery. Honestly, what I'm about to tell you might not even have to do with the virus. If it happened at any other time, my mind wouldn't go towards the virus or illness having anything to do with it, but since it happened now, I feel like there is absolutely a chance it could be related. I am 25, and was in the process of moving in with my boyfriend of a decade when this all happened. As such, I'm currently still staying with my parents, as most of my stuff was still here, and the office is a better fit for me working from home. I'm an only child and get along well with my parents, so it works out fine. We live in the house I grew up in, at the end of a cul-de-sac in a residential neighborhood. We have lived here longer than most of the other people on the circle, so we know them all pretty well. Our next door neighbors are a couple I'll call Jake and Kelsey, and they have a 3-year-old son I'll call Davey. Davey is a sweet kid. My mom and I have babysat him a few times over the years, and sometimes my friend Jessica brings over her 3-year-old daughter Miley so that they can play together. Anyway, my point of this is that we know Davey and his parents decently well. Yesterday, I woke up with a migraine. This wasn't unusual. I get chronic migraines. One odd thing happened though that I feel like might be worth mentioning. I see a therapist once a week, and since all the COVID stuff has been going on, we have appointments via Zoom. I called out of work in the morning because even looking at a computer screen was killing me, and then I texted my therapist asking if we could have our Zoom meeting later in the day because of my migraine. She said that was no problem, but then added, "There must be something in the air today. You're the third person to either cancel or reschedule because of a migraine." It was barely 8 a.m., so that was surprising. Anyway, that was just a random strange thing that happened. But now I'll get back to the point. So last night by around 5 p.m., I was feeling a lot better, well enough to watch TV. So I laid down backwards on my bed with my laptop and started watching House. The way I was laying put my head right below my bedroom window, which is cracked open at all times because I have an air conditioning unit hooked up to the window, and it has a screen so no bugs or anything can get in. Because of this, I sometimes hear commotion in the street, the neighborhood kids playing, cars turning around in a circle, etc. But it's never too bad because it's a pretty quiet neighborhood. So I'm watching TV, and by this time it's about 6 p.m. when I hear, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy," from outside. I just ignored it. Like I mentioned, the most common noises I hear from outside are the shrieks of the kids who live on the circle playing, and sometimes them crying or shouting for their parents if they fall down. But the screaming persisted, and it sounded like it was really close by. "Daddy, Daddy," the screams got more and more frantic, so I paused my show and hopped up next to the window. What I saw outside startled me, to say the least. Davey was in their family's Tahoe, buckled into his car seat. His door was wide open, as was the driver and front seat passenger doors. Their garage door was open too, and I couldn't see Jake or Kelsey anywhere. Davey's screaming got more frantic and he started to cry. "Hey, Davey," I called out to him. He stopped shouting momentarily and looked around. "Up here, it's me, Elise," I yelled, waving at him frantically. "I'm going to come get you, just hang on." I turned to run out of the room, and that's when the car started to roll down the driveway. It must have been in neutral or reverse. What the fuck was going on? I watched helplessly as the car rolled down the driveway and smashed into another car parked on the side of the cul-de-sac with a sickening crunch. The damage was minimal since the car had barely been moving, but Davey of course started screaming louder, and the car alarm on the other car started wailing. I launched myself down the stairs and into the driveway without putting shoes on and bolted over to the car. I unbuckled Davey and got him out, trying to comfort him while the owner of the other car came out of a house across the street, and Lyle, the old man who lives next door to Davey and his family, came out too. My parents soon followed, and we all tried to deduce what had happened. I explained what I had seen, while still holding a crying Davy, and my dad and the owner of the other car, a guy named Max who was a friend of the couple across the street, tried to assess the damage and figure out whether or not to call the police. Once Davy had calmed down a bit, my mom and I asked him if he had any idea where his parents were. No, they were here and then not, he said through tears. I kept calling for Daddy but he never came. I felt so bad for him. Lyle had gone into their garage and opened the door leading into the house. He started by just calling their names, but then Lyle, Max, and my dad decided to go in and search for them. They also called 911 to get a police officer on the way over, because it seemed as though, best case scenario, a 3-year-old had simply been left alone. They searched the whole house and found nothing out of the ordinary. The police came and questioned us all, including Davy, but could find no answers. They were forced to file a missing persons report for both Jake and Kelsey. Since they have no other family here, and none of us know who any of their friends are aside from us neighbors, we volunteered to let Davy stay with us for the time being so that he didn't have to go to the station or to a foster home in the interim, and miraculously, they allowed it. Davy doesn't understand what is going on at all. He keeps asking when mommy and daddy will come back for him. I just keep telling him that hopefully it will be soon, but until then he's having a sleepover with us. I tried asking him again if he remembered the last time he saw his parents, and he just said that his daddy was there with him, and then he wasn't, and mommy was putting on her shoes. So, what the hell? I have no idea what to make of this. Jake and Kelsey struggled to get pregnant, and Davy is the thing that matters more than anything to both of them. They wouldn't abandon him, and even if they for some reason did, the way they did it makes no sense. They could have dropped him on the porch of a neighbor, or of the fire department, leaving him in a running car with their house totally open, and nothing missing from the house, indicating that if they did choose to up and disappear, that they brought nothing with them, makes absolutely no sense. They also have a cat that they love almost as much as Davy, who is also currently living with us because he was left behind too. Like everything else right now, something just seems off about this, and I'm terrified that I won't find out what it is in time. I can't handle someone I love disappearing. What the fuck are we supposed to do about this? There is someone living in my closet. It happened to me about 4 years ago. I have been keeping this story as a secret until today. 4 years ago I used to live in Seattle. After my ex and I broke up, I was forced to move to Renton, to the bad part of Renton. To be more specific, Maple Valley Highway. My apt complex looked like it used to be a motel. It had a weird layout. I even had a window in my kitchen which led to a dark room without any doors. At least the view was nice. Right outside of my apt there was a river and a forest. I would sometimes see animals there. My friends used to joke this area is a perfect hideout spot for a serial killer. We tried to sneak into a hidden room, which was behind my kitchen, but the window was too small, and there was no outside entrance. Sometime later I hung a painting over it and never thought of it again. But the story is not about this weird room. It was a 1-bedroom apt, and my bedroom had a small walk-in closet. It had a terrible design and my clothes would fall down all the time. I don't like the cluster, so my closet was always clean. I even didn't have boxes there. During my first 2 weeks I could barely sleep. I would always hear something move inside of my walls, near the closet, but I assumed these were just raccoons. Again, there was a forest right in front of my apt, so I would often see them chilling outside. Right after I moved into this apt, I would often throw parties to keep myself distracted after a breakup. I would have people over all the time, but no one would ever walk into my bedroom without asking my permission first. Of course there were drinks involved at these parties, and I would often wake up after a wild party in the middle on my bedroom with no memory of last night. That has been this way until I noticed my clothes and food started to go missing. I asked my friends around, but them swore they didn't take anything. But each time after I had a party, something was lost the very next day. Eventually I got tired of this and I ended my party season. I started living my regular life, waking up, going to work, having a quick lunch with a friend, going to my second job, buying groceries on my way back home, sleeping. As you can tell, I had a very busy schedule and I would fall asleep as soon as my head touches the pillow. But, you know, never have I ever had a restful sleep in that apt. I kept hearing some movements inside of my walls. Sometimes I would wake up in the middle of the night cause I had a feeling someone was watching me. This is when I have developed a habit of falling asleep with my light on. I should probably mention I would discover the light were off the next morning. But since I'm a huge skeptic, I would tell myself I was the one who turned them off. In the middle of the night, sometimes I would have people over at my place, and they would refuse to stay over again. And every time I asked them why, I would get one response: your apt creeps me out. There is something unsettling about it. So about 6 or 8 months into me living in that hell place, I started discovering my bed was undone when I was back home from work, but this is literally impossible. I always get it done, no matter what. And my food was going missing again. Sometimes I would even discover my towels were wet, as if someone just used them. Later that week a loud clapping sound woke me up in the middle of the night. I got out of my bed and heard the sound of something real heavy falling down. My hands were shaking. I turned the lights on, and nothing. My app was clean and I was the only one in it. Maybe it was a neighbor dropping something. Few days later something started to smell funny in my room. The smell was getting progressively worse. Have you even left a raw steak outside when it's plus 90 degrees Fahrenheit outside by a dumpster? Well, it smelled even worse than that. It was going to the point I couldn't even stay inside of the app. My neighbors were complaining about the odor as well. This is when I called the maintenance staff to inspect my app and crawl space. A maintenance guy checked every corner of my apartment. Before he opened my closet up, the smell was unbearable there. He knocked on the wall to discover an empty spot behind it. It took him few minutes to remove the wall. It took me a second to freeze in fear and start screaming. What I saw still chases me in my nightmares. There was a decomposing man. He was holding my dress, which got lost few months ago. Of course the police was called, so it turned out it was a homeless man. He had been living in the crawl space of my app for almost a year. He would eat my food, sleep in my bed and take a shower while I was at work. He was the one stealing my clothes and I don't want to think what he would do to it. He would watch me sleep and take a shower. Police discovered small peeking holes in my bathroom. He had a stroke and fell down. This is why I woke up in the middle of the night that one day. I would feel his presence but I was too skeptical and tired back then to do anything about it. Of course I moved out shortly after the investigation was done. To this day I cannot fall asleep unless I check my closet. To this day I wake up screaming. I don't know what's worse, that I had a homeless man living inside of my closet or that I had his corpse for over a week before it was discovered.